a measure that was a ratio, unitless, but that would provide a proportion of difference between the treated and untreated samples. So the most basic kind of measure you could come up with is a ratio like this. Now, whether it's a ratio that measures an energy, a flow of information, of course there are different models to talk about what the influence is, and I'm not here to discuss that right now, but I tend to look at it more as a transfer of information, but I'm not quite sure. I don't think everyone is quite sure what energy is, this biofield is. But we can quantify it in some fashion. And specifically to this flower protocol, you can look at the number of bits of darkness versus lighter pixels and come up with a measure. So just in the way of an example, right, for this set of flowers, we came up with a ratio of 25, and you can see there is some contrast. The one that had even more contrast ended up with a larger number. Now in the future, we're looking to improve on this measure, right? It's a common practice to use logarithms for this sort of thing, so we'll probably adopt something like that. That was one of the advices we also received from peer reviewers, from colleagues, people with more experience. And we are right now designing the protocol for a formal experiment, and we're going to conduct that with some help from some students and professors and from different universities. And our idea was to just put this out there, receive as much criticism as possible ahead of time, and then implement that in our protocol. And so we don't waste anybody's time, right? So I think just based on the first explorations, it's going to be promising. And so we're making a number of considerations how to improve that protocol. Do we look at the whole flower? Do we look at individual petals? And then a lot of it is just defining precisely the conditions of the experiment so people can judge it, replicate it as well. And we're looking forward to the time where very sophisticated, high-budget technology that you heard before me and my low-budget versions can help culture to incorporate this concept of bioenergy, of the idea that consciousness can play an active role in the physical universe. And the hope is, of course, that this brings a different awareness to all of us, that we can all, through our manifestation, make the world a better place. And it's interesting to see that around the same time I was toying with this, that there was a viral ad by IKEA that showed one plant receiving sort of bullying messages and another one that was receiving very uplifting messages. And of course, this is also not an experiment, a scientific experiment. It's more of a PR stunt. But it's interesting to see that through things like this, we can captivate the public, and it can be a way to sort of infiltrate the predominant paradigm, and maybe from within we can start to bring some transformation in a larger scale, and that's our hope. I'd like to just invite you, if you do have any sort of consciousness-related technology, to reach out to us, and that's it. I'll be available afterwards.
Looking for questions?
One more thing while we get our first questioner. We are developing some kits that if you'd like to try it at home, of course this is fairly easy, you can do it yourself, but if you want a pre-made kit and instructions, just get in touch with us. We'd be happy to provide that later this year as well.
Thank you, Nelson. I very much enjoyed your talk.
Thank you.
I was wondering if you were familiar with, I know there was an experiment done several decades ago. I believe it involved Stuart Blue Harari, and in that experiment they used his cat.
Yeah, Spirit the cat.
Yes, Spirit the cat. And they had him travel out of body supposedly to his room, and they measured the number of meows the cat made per hour or something and used that to quantify. So I was wondering if you were considering using animals instead of plants, or doing some of those kind of experiments as well, as opposed to just plant-based.
Well, we're not at this moment, and I rather like to leave my cat to roam around. But I get your point. But the motivation behind this is something that can be easily replicated, low budget, right, and less red tape. And of course, anytime you use a human subject, animal subject, you have a number of considerations, right? So we'll probably steer away from that. But just from personal experience, I have a cat, and certainly I have, and my friends have dogs and so on, and they seem to be quite perceptive. Yeah.
Let me ask a question for really a point of clarification. When you talked about the fMRI, I may have misunderstood, but I thought you were sort of implying that it's measuring something way out there, where the fMRI is very much measuring in the brain.
Right.
It may be responding to what's out there. Could you clarify the point you're trying to make with the fMRI?
Right, so we wondered the same thing. So we originally had a subject in the fMRI, this is his brain, and he was performing a practice that leads to a state called vibrational state. And at the height of when he self-reported having the vibrational state, there was significant brain activity, but nothing anomalous really. But just after he stopped, not only was there typical activity across the hemispheres, then there were effects that were outside the cranium, even though he was unable to move his head. Then as a clarification, we said, okay, let's just put something biological but not a brain, like an egg, inside the fMRI. And let's stand outside of the fMRI and just emit the energy, and then just see if we can reproduce some sort of an effect. And on a pretty much on-demand basis, emit, detect, stop, effect goes away. Emit, detect, stop, effect goes away. And this time, for example, with an egg inside the fMRI. So there appears to be some sort of interference effect when the person is performing the practice. Exactly what the nature of it is and how it works, we still don't know. And of course, we're working with different laboratories to do experiments so that we know it's not limited to a particular type of fMRI or particular place. So we've done it in a couple labs in Brazil, and we've done it also, I think, in the US. So right now we're collecting data. It's very preliminary, but it's exciting because there might be a way to, very expensive way, but a way nonetheless to detect energy on demand, and that would be an important breakthrough for all of us.
Are there any other questions?
Hello.
So, Hideki Kakubo did some experiments with cucumbers, and that's not easy to say. But what he was doing was trying to measure biophoton collection by the cucumbers and using them as sensors. He did one experiment where he laid the cucumbers out in rows and in depth around people who were doing healing, and then tried to see if there was a field effect. Have you thought of doing anything similar to that tomorrow?
I haven't, but now I will think about it.
Talk later.
All right, great.
All right, any other questions, comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.